Welcome to story time. Screw that up. Welcome to story time with Bromo and the Express. So, I started my YouTube channel for two reasons. One was to leave a record for my posterity because I've had some requests on that. And the second was for a business project that I've been working on. And this part is going to be for my posterity exclusively. And of course, anybody that wants to watch, it'll be public. It started out as I started making a list of times I could have died. It actually started with times that my life flashed before my eyes. You knew within seconds there was nothing you could do. It was live or die. If you've ever had that experience, then you'll identify with with the stories that I tell you. Then I thought, well, there's more interesting parts to my life than just those stories for my posterity. So why don't I tell the ones that I remember and thought were interesting? Therefore, everything that follows is to the best of my memory. And I'm going to start somewhere in the early years, and I'll jump around chronologically, just because I feel like doing it that way. So in the beginning, let's go back to the Salt Lake Valley and Trans-West Air Service. Trans-West Air Service was run by a man whose first name was and he owned, back in these days, firefighter aircraft. So the aircraft you see dropping flame retardant and things up in the mountains, he owned, I think, 3 total, 2 DC-6s and 1 DC-7. Now in those days, those were cheap airplanes to buy because they were huge prop-driven aircraft. And on the green screen, we should be able to be bringing some of this up. So I remember coming out of my house that day and looking around and thinking, oh, it's a beautiful day, but winter's coming. You have that one day where you smell the air and you just know that summer's over. And I didn't have anything to do. I think it was a Saturday. No plans. So I ran out to the airport, and lo and behold, flying the DC-6s for wildlife resources. And there's a lake up in the northeast side, which I'll look up and hopefully give you an exact picture of, that they're doing a fish kill in because trash fish had invaded the lake and destroyed all of what we consider good game fish. So a DC-6 was one of the old airliners. It had 4, I believe, Pratt & Whitney's 2800 radial engines. And those radial engines held, I don't know, 75 to 100 gallons of oil per engine. So when you filled them with oil, you took one of the tugs with a wagon, and you had 50-gallon barrels of oil that you pumped the oil up into the engine, and they burned oil. One funny little footnote is they used to sit by the fence where Trans-West Air Service was, and there was like a frontage road that ran clear around inside the airport to the FBOs, which means fixed base operators. And the people, when we would fly these airplanes, they would line up behind it sometimes. And I remember one time there was a guy behind the fence, standing directly behind the engines that they were starting, wearing a white shirt and black slacks, like a white dress shirt. And I thought, he has no idea. So that aircraft, propellers turn over, and they start running, and out those pipes blow a massive amount of oil past the tail of the aircraft, all over the guy in his white shirt. Of course, this was the days before everybody had a phone, or I'm sure it would be out on the internet already. But I honestly felt bad for him that he didn't understand what was about to happen, but nobody warned him either. So anyway, I figured I'd head out to the airport and see what was going on. I worked for Transwest Air Service at the time. And he was busy having one of the aircraft fueled, and he's like, oh wait, can I edit that? Hopefully I can beep it. Anyway, he's like, Bromo, I need somebody to help me that knows what they're doing. Go put some coveralls on and bring me 3 50-gallon drums of oil and one of the fuel trucks over. So I helped him fuel it and oil it, and it was on a Saturday. He knew that I wasn't working at that time, but he and I thought we got along pretty good. I had some wonderful experiences with him that he invited me to do, and I'm grateful for that. So I want to say, hey, thank you. When we finished, he says, why don't you come fly the engineer seat? Yeah, okay. So I did. I jump in, and now you have to understand that these old airliners were stripped of everything on the inside except the cockpit, and in the very back were weights to create the proper center imbalance for the aircraft, and underneath it was bomb bays to load fire retardant in, or any like a type of fluid, a heavy fluid. And then from the cockpit you can control, there, I don't know, maybe there were 6 separate doors that would open to the bomb bays, and the liquids would drop out to prevent fires from spreading up in mountainous areas where you can't get heavy equipment in by road to fight a fire. So we all strapped in, fired it up. I was flying co-pilot, and it's actually an amazing experience to be on one of these old aircraft. You feel the horsepower, and you can feel the engine start going through the frame. And airplanes have a specific smell to them. All aircraft do. And I attribute that to an aluminum smell. When you step up, when you walk up the movable stairs to get into the aircraft, you look back and everything's hollowed out. The insulation, everything's gone. All the weight that's not necessary is gone, so they can carry the maximum possible amount of retardant or whatever chemical somebody wants dropped. So we fire it up, we take off, and he's flying low. He turns out right along the edge of the mountains here on the Wasatch Front, going northbound towards where I-84 goes through to Morgan. I remember as we're down low, halfway up the mountain, and part of it is it's about money. Is he's only going to climb to the height he needs to be, according to regulations. And I wouldn't say to be safe, because altitude is safety, but the higher you climb, the more time it takes and the more fuel you burn and the less you earn on the job. So everything's done via permission of the air traffic controllers and the tower, so on and so forth. And we were right next to the mountain, about halfway up. And as we flew along, I look and see, and we see there's a hang glider off the mountain in this lane. And aircraft produce weight turbulence, and the bigger they are, the bigger the turbulence is behind the aircraft. And they also produce wingtip vortices, and the same is true for size. The larger the aircraft, the bigger the wingtip vortices are. And a vortice is like a funnel. So the edge of the wings come out like this, and off of them are 2 circling funnels that you can't see, but they're going around in the air. And you never want to fly into weight turbulence with a smaller aircraft or a wingtip vortice, especially low to the ground, because it can flip you upside down. And when you're landing, if you're landing behind a heavy, you want to touch down before where he took off. And the towers, especially in international airports, usually smaller aircraft have their own runways that they're assigned to, and very seldom do they send the heavies over there unless it's absolutely necessary. So we're flying along. We see a hang glider, and there's nothing you can do. By the time we see it, he's passing under us. And I think, holy cow, I hope that the wake turbulence and the wingtip vortices didn't mess with him. I remember watching the news that night to make sure I didn't hear of any hang gliders that got killed in the next couple days, and fortunately there was no news on it, so it was fine. And I mean, how could you not see us coming out there in a hang glider, right? And the other thing is he shouldn't have been flying there. You don't take aircraft like that and fly them where piston engine or jet engine aircraft fly in those lanes. You simply don't do it. So anyway, we turned and we flew in between the canyon. Then we went to the north side. We hugged that wall, and we flew out north. Let's see, northwest to this lake. And I will look it up to see what the name of it is and hopefully put an aerial photo of it in. We come up on the lake, and our job is to drop a type of chemical that takes the oxygen out of the water and kills all of the trash fish. I think that's how the chemical worked, okay? That's a belief of mine. And I remember the lake, if you were to look at it, it was let's do it like this. It circled, it had an alcove here, came around here, and then the dam was here, right? And there's mountains on both sides of it, all the way around it. Except where the dam is, it's built in a valley, which is where they build dams to dam up creeks. And so we came across, the dam's like across here, we came across probably about a couple 100 feet, and as we turned and came to this side, we were going to start with the alcove because it was the hardest to hit. It was, you know, you're moving at 250 knots, and you have to be pretty dang good at bombing to drop something moving at that speed at the right time and have it go into a slot or like a horseshoe where the water is, like a natural little harbor area. So as we came around the pass to line up with the alcove, dropped the aircraft down to where we were flying so low that I'm looking out the window thinking, let's see, those props measure how many feet? It honestly felt like we could hit bushes and rocks and little dirt hills with our props. We were that low. And we cross across. Let's see, so how do I do this with my hands? We cross across the alcove. As we come up to it, he's barking orders. We're dropping some flaps. We're slowing the airplane down, giving it a little bit more lift. We're opening cow flaps because at slower speeds we want more air to cool the engines. And this is all the co-pilot's job. And then he starts calling the numbers, and she's hitting the switches to open the bomb bays in sequence. And they open, and the weight comes out, and the airplane, if it's the front one, the nose lifts. Pilot corrects. Next one, middle one, and the back ones, nose go down because of the weight change. So the airplane is porpoising, and the pilot is flying it through that, so it doesn't do that, but you're always a little bit behind. Okay? We cross the alcove. We drop down above lake level because it was like a cliff alcove, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 feet from the land to the bottom of the water level. And we're down below the dam level. I'm looking out of the engineer's seat between the pilot and co-pilot, and we see the dam is above us. And he's closing the bomb bay doors. He's barking out, close those cow flaps, and he's pushing full power all simultaneously to build airspeed because our run took us down in. We're at water level. And then it's to climb out above the dam and have not only the speed to clear the dam in climbing, but also to do a turn back over the lake again. The alcove, I don't know how many, it may have taken one bay. I don't know, that we dropped. So we cut around and we do that several times, just slowly working our way over the lake until everything's been dropped and we fly back at the lowest levels. And land and go do it again. So that wasn't a time that my life flashed before my eyes. I had full confidence in the crew. I had full confidence in the aircraft. I knew the mechanics that worked on it. But it certainly is dangerous. It's extremely dangerous to have any type of aircraft that low to the ground. If you watch racers, they the minute they have a problem, they immediately, or military pilots, they pull up for altitude. Because altitude means time before that plane hits the ground for them to work through the problem and either solve it or get out of the aircraft. As far as military people, they can punch out. In our case, we don't punch out. If we have a problem, that's a memorial in the newspaper. So-and-so died. But it wasn't, I didn't obviously fear death or have any even thoughts like that. It was more so I was like, ha! I'm flying engineer, yeah. Oh, God is good. So I'm going to start with that story out on the internet. Then I may jump back to a time I really could have died when I was very, very young. And fortunately, I didn't follow my brother's advice. All right, till we meet again. That's story time with Bromo and the Express. Oh, a little side note. The Bromo, moi, the Express is whoever I'm working with at the moment. Right? So, hope you have a great one. Go make some memories.
Ha 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 ha!